Okay, so good morning and welcome to Political Liaison of May 30th. I'm going to call the meeting to order and first go by identifying of any media on the line. Okay, don't see any media on the line. I'll now go to any changes or additions or deletions to the agenda. I see Nathan.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. Just clarification on the agenda item for the where'd it go? Soil and illicit dumping protocol. It's not for information. We're actually looking for a decision on that. Just clarification. That's all.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, Nathan. So we'll make that fix. Is there anything further? Okay, seeing or hearing none, then I'll look to a mover and seconder to adopt the agenda.
Move.
Moved by Michelle, seconder.
Second.
Second by Nathan. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. We'll declare any conflicts as we move through the agenda. We have no delegations or presentations on this agenda for today, so that leads us right in to the adoption of the political liaison minutes of April 25th.
I can move those.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. Moved by Nathan, seconder. Seconded by Michelle. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Our next item, there's a lifelong learning task force update, which I believe is in your Dropbox. This is a usual standalone item. Not sure if there's any questions or comments in relation to the update for lifelong learning. Okay, seeing or hearing none, then I'll just look to a motion to accept their latest update as information. Is there a mover to that effect?
I will.
I'll move.
Moved by Carrie, second by Melba. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. CAP team activities report should also be in your Dropbox. There's a recommendation as well to accept that report as information. So again, another standalone item on our political liaison agenda. Looking to any questions, comments? Nathan.
Yeah, just not necessarily any more substance on the report, but just to update council. I have been starting to get up to speed on a couple of the files and attending a few meetings. So able to kind of hold on to some of those responsibilities on the political side. So I'm trying to filter out what's political and what's not and bring that up going forward. So working with Lonnie and Robin on those items.
Perfect. Thanks. Thanks for that, Nathan. I also had an opportunity to attend the city of Brantford, their latest meeting as well. So we'll definitely work with you, Nate, to make sure that we're getting all necessary political pieces back to the table. Is there any further questions or comments in relation to the CAP activity report? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing none, so I will look to a mover and seconder to accept their CAP's activity report as information for this month.
I'll move to accept.
Looking to move. Thank you, Carrie. Moved by Carrie, seconder.
I'll second it,
Looking
Melba.
for a seconder. Thank you, Melba. Is there any further questions or comments in relation to the activities report? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Number 8 on our agenda, Black Creek Village. Just looking to see who will be speaking on this item. Sorry, I believe it's is it over to you, Lon?
Taylor, did you want
Yeah.
to speak?
So Robin and Marcy were contacted from the Black Creek Pioneer Village. They are formerly the Black Creek Pioneer Village, Northern Black Creek, and they want to have an indigenous presence there, along with their settler history. And they've contacted several other First Nations, the Mississaugas, Georgina Bay, and then a couple other that are in the briefing out along with us. And we gave them the history that we have at the office, and they want to go further and do some research. So we instructed them that there's an ethics review committee to approve all research in Six Nations, and as they want to, and then after they go through that, they want to, along with doing their own research on Six Nations, they want to interview community members to get a broader history, and so that and a fuller history, as they haven't quite decided how they want this exhibit presence, I should say, at the Black Creek Pioneer Village. So they just want to gather as much information and history from as many people as possible, and then they'll sort it out and put it together at the place.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Taylor. I see opening the floor up for questions, comments on this item. Michelle.
Okay, so I would think, yeah, if this is research, it should have went directly to ethics. However, my question is, do we not have individuals within our own community to provide this history, as opposed to having the Black Creek Village actually facilitate that? Because I'm looking at the back end now, once they've collected the data, which I also think we have, who will be facilitating this information and sharing it to the wider population?
I think we did send them some of the research we already done, and they wanted to conduct their own as well, but they also want to interview community members to get the history directly from them. So that's why they want to. So that's why it's come forward that we told them the process that they need to go through in order to do that.
Okay, so I think, Chief, we should defer this. It should go through ethics. They have those conversations, and then it comes back the normal process.
Okay, I do have a suggestion of deferring this item over to the ethics. Is there any opposition to that piece? Okay, this is just for the purpose of going through the steps at the ethics committee, and then we brought back here at the main table. So I'm not hearing any opposition, so we'll defer this item over to ethics and then allow it to follow the process from there. Okay, the next piece I have is in relation to the soil and illicit dumping protocol. And as mentioned in the beginning, this is for clarified rather, that it's not for information that a decision needs to be made. So maybe as the chair of the environment, I'll look to Councillor Nathan to walk us through this piece.
Thanks, Chief. So the information's in your kit. You'll recall we socialized this, so we're not coming with a quick decision on this. I think it was in February we first brought this to council for some discussion and some direction. And now we're at the point where we've done a lot of the legwork in terms of the logistics and had the conversations, and we feel we're at a good point to get this approved in terms of the proposal for an interim process, and what we're calling it is voluntary compliance. We're calling this an interim process because we know at the back end we have a lot of work to do as it relates to the enforcement. We already know, and I don't need to go into detail, but prosecution of bylaws, in this case bylaw 93-1, I believe it was, 193, we have a lot of work to do regionally and nationally as it relates to the bylaw enforcement with our brothers and sisters in other First Nations. So while that work's going on, and while we kind of look to build our capacity internally, we thought it was necessary to put this interim process in place. And what it will do is we have a number of public notices that have to go out for public release as it relates to the process for voluntary compliance. And what we're looking to do is basically put out notice to the effect of, if you're a resident planning to bring in soil, here's the steps you have to take. Here's the individuals you have to call, and here's who you have to give your soil reports to. So that's all kind of included in an infographic going out to the community. So they have the phone numbers, they have the emails, and they know who to notify as it relates to bringing in soil. And we're asking to do that 30 days prior to bringing in the actual soil. And what this will do also is, there's a lot of hustle and bustle and reactions when dump trucks are lined up on areas outside of our community, and we have to scramble. Rod's not with us today, but Rod's usually the one scrambling, and Michelle and I get a number of phone calls to start actioning a lot of things. So hoping that once we get this voluntary compliance out, the process starts smoothing out going forward. So that's in a nutshell what we're looking for. And like I said, this isn't the first time we brought it to council. I believe we brought it back in February looking for those items. Very complex issue, very real time. And I know even Rod's probably not on this call because he's dealing with a certain matter going forward. The other side to this is we're starting to get an understanding of the soil samples that are coming in the paperwork. And just want to assure council that Rod's educated in this matter. He knows how to read those soil reports. And once we get those soil reports, they go to Rod for his analysis going forward. So that's the process that we're looking to kind of undertake. I'm just going to see if Michelle or Sherry Lynn had any additional comments or anything I forgot.
No, I think you summed it up perfectly, Nathan. It's voluntary. It's not, we're hoping community buys in because we want to have good soil coming into the territory. We know soil needs to come in. So thanks, Nathan.
Thanks, Michelle. Just the final point, Chief. So I'll kind of go through a real example of this. Let's say in 30 days, you're bringing in X number of dump trucks from an accredited gardening supply. And the soil testing that you have is a good test, and you're bringing that in 30 days. The number is provided on the notice, so you would call that, submit your report, and it'll get checked off, and then you can bring your soil in. And the other important thing to this voluntary compliance, we'll inform through flyers and notices the neighbors, informing them that this dumping activity is happening and that the individual has brought in a good soil test. So that's kind of what we're looking to do going forward in a very simplistic manner, but we know it's not going to always be that simple.
Okay, thank you. Great. It's good work that's being done. Thank you, Nathan, and to the Environment Task Force for taking this on. I know, again, it's been presented to council some time ago, so I'm glad to see where it's at. I'll open the floor up now for questions, comments. Melba.
Yeah, I really like this voluntary, which puts the responsibility back onto the community, not only elected council and Haudenosaunee chiefs and whoever else groups that were objecting to some of the trucks coming with possibly contaminated foil. When we go back to our opening address and the 2-row, I think it really falls on the responsibility of the community, and as it says in there, to ensure a safe and healthy environment. I think that's really important, and also it's also referring to the community plan where it mentioned coming together of the minds and our social responsibility in working together to ensure the safety and health in the present time as well as in the future for all our community members. So I think it's a really good part on the part of community people and working together. So it should work, but we know it totally won't work because of the greed of our people and the lack of caring for one another. So I really support this voluntary. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Melba, for your comments. Nathan.
Yeah, thanks, Melba, for that. And one thing I did forget to kind of mention is we continue to work and will continue to work with representatives with HCCC in the hopes that we kind of look at a way and have that protocol kind of put in place so that notification goes back and forth and we open those lines of communication. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Nathan. Michelle.
And I just wanted to add, Nathan, and Nathan posed this last week to the provincial candidates. There is work being done with the province because that's where the contaminated soil comes from. And so we're trying to address all levels to ensure that this issue is dealt with. And that means working with everybody. So, Nathan continues to do that and push hard. So just want the community to know that we get it. But we also need their support in trying to deal with the issue. So I'll move. To move.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. So Michelle is moving to accept. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it, Sherlyn.
Second by Sherry Lynn. Are there any further questions or comments? And just really quickly, I know, thank you, Nathan, for attending the meeting with Minister Haidu a couple of weeks ago with Rod as well. We're making some moves on the federal level as well. So, looking to support Nathan and the Environment Task Force and any of this work that needs to happen at both, again, provincial and federal levels. Is there any further questions or comments in relation to the motion? Okay, I'm not hearing or seeing none. I will go to a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Motion to waive second reading. Moved by Michelle.
I'll second.
Thanks, Michelle.
Sherlyn.
Second by Sherry Lynn to waive second reading. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, so we're definitely again have to give a big thank you to Nathan and Michelle and everybody on the Environment Task Force. I know this is a lot of work, but this is part of that work getting done. So do appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to continue moving along here on our agenda. The next two pieces in relation to the Iroquois Caucus. I know this communication plan has been presented to council, and I'll just look to Jill. I believe Jill's on the line Jill has been doing a lot of work as well within the caucus itself. And so maybe I'll just pass it over to Jill first, just to kind of give us any high level background points.
Thanks, Chief. As you mentioned, this communication plan, which was in, I believe, the Dropbox that you've hopefully had a chance to review, was initially presented in March to the council to get feedback. And at that time, there was one feedback comment, and that was from Councillor Wright when he expressed that maybe this communication plan was more of a governance document. The other point that came up from the March meeting was that this table wanted a presentation of the communication plan from the Iroquois Caucus coordinator, Abraham Francis. Abraham Francis did attend on Friday, May 5th, as part of the strategic planning session, and was ready to give the presentation of this communication plan, but unfortunately that didn't occur. So the Iroquois Caucus is looking for acceptance of this communication plan. So I can go over it again at a very high level. And I think taking into consideration the comments that Councillor Wright made, that it does touch on governance challenges, but what the communication plan is designed to do, after Abraham had been in the position for a number of months, close the gaps and improve efficiencies of the table. So that's what this was designed to do. And what happened, or what has happened at that table, unfortunately, it's become more of a discussions table and less action-driven table. So this communication plan is attempting to close those gaps and improve efficiencies so that the table can move more as an action-oriented table. So you'll see the centralized information distributor. So this is where centralized information goes. So part of the vision is to have a separate communications piece where that information flows to directly, because oftentimes the coordinator gets information from all communities about all types of issues that should be, and rightly so, be shared out with the other communities. So the plan is to attempt to create this generalized information portal, I guess, where information can be shared. Doesn't necessarily mean that is a priority for the Iroquois Caucus, or that it will be dealt with at the Iroquois Caucus, and it may well be, but it's generalized information that other chiefs, grand chiefs, or technicians have in front of them that they feel might be valuable to the whole table. The other piece, the big piece of the communications plan, is it kind of looks like a divide, but it really isn't. A General Assembly and the Grand Chiefs table, and they would go following each other. So each month is an alternate table. So the General Assembly table meets, and that's where there's counselors, technicians sit at that table, counselors, chiefs, and technicians sit at that table. And that's where issues can come forward from various communities. And they do a bit of work from the communications plan and try to characterize the issue as it comes forward, to make sure, and as many of you know, if you go to these meetings, there's like, it'll be one issue and then all of a sudden it turns into 15. So part of this plan is trying to create some focus to then move the issue up to the Grand Chiefs table, which would be at the next month's meeting, so that that table can have the information, make a definitive decision about how to move forward on the issue and whether it's a priority for communities, because we're all operating at different speeds. We all have different priorities in our community based on geography, based on what's happening, based on the politics within our regions. So part of that was to create that piece so that the Grand Chiefs table can be a decision-making table to then be very focused about action that's going to occur from the Iroquois Caucus. And I should mention this, when I was looking at this communications plan, one of the challenges over the years that has occurred from the Iroquois caucus is that it was originally only a chiefs, grand chiefs table. And so you didn't have counselors, you didn't have chiefs, you didn't have so much technicians sitting there. The problem was, and it's across the board, the chiefs and grand chiefs are so inundated with meetings and requests that oftentimes they cannot make these particular meetings, or they only have a limited amount of time to be in the meeting. And so chiefs, grand chiefs begin to send counselors or chiefs to these tables. And it kind of organically started to grow that way. So the communication plan is attempting to address that sort of gap that exists, that occurred just naturally over the years about the number of issues that come forward. So you'll see that, and that's part of the plan. Again, this is a draft plan, but the Iroquois Caucus coordinator is looking for some acceptance of this communication plan to try and unroll it, to try it out, to see if it's actually going to work. The other piece you would see in the document is working groups. And that, again, goes to the fact that, you know, each community is operating at different levels, different priorities, different geographic regions. So it may be that some of these issues need a working group. And we kind of see it here in our community with what was just being discussed, environment, where you need a focused working group that's going to focus extremely focused on a particular issue for a short period of time. And that may be necessary at this table as well. And then you had in the communication plan, the discussion about technicians and what their role is. And, you know, the Iroquois Caucus coordinators attempting to improve efficiencies within the Iroquois Caucus itself to advance the issues that our communities face. So that's kind of in a nutshell what that was. And I just want to mention again that the acknowledgement of Councillor Wright's initial comments when this was originally presented back in March, that this looked like a governance document, and rightly so. This document will impact the terms of reference for sure. So those changes still need to be made. So yeah, if there's any questions, I can try my best to answer them. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jill, for walking us through those. And to be honest, I really am glad to see the progress that we've been making, you know, and coming to this, you know, the point in time that we're at. You know, we always talk about the efficiency pieces, and I think the Iroquois Caucus at the table there is really, you know, a really important table for us to be at with our other sister Iroquois community. And it's really nice to see that, you know, we are looking at the efficiencies, because I know even Jill, I would even get kind of frustrated at times as well, you know, sitting at that table, because it seemed like, you know, we bring the issues to the table, but nothing gets done, you know. So action oriented, solution focused, you know, those are the pieces that I think this document and the work that the coordinator and Jill, I know, has been a part as well, to really make those improvements and look at the efficiencies. So I'm pleased to see with, I mean, we have to start somewhere, right, in order to look and really grade to see how it will work in the implementation of it. But again, the next piece I think also too is to look at budget. You know, we always talk about you know, these items at that table, but you know, I think that's another item of discussion at the Iroquois Caucus that we need to have for each community to look at overall contributions and how we can again increase that budget to do this important work. So that being said, thank you, Jill. I'll look to any further questions, comments. We've also had, again, Councillors Melba, Thomas, and Hazel Johnson as well attend a couple of the Iroquois Caucus meetings, so that, again, representation is there.
It's Melba, I'll comment. Yeah, I've seen similar to what Jill is mentioning. You know, they're very long meetings, and what happens with the chair, I've witnessed and experienced, is he allows presentations it can go on half an hour to 45 minutes. And what happens at times is it's not directly related to Six Nations. I know it's important to support our other First Nations that really belong to us as a group, but it's really hard to take when those kind of things happen. So it's not directly related to us, but it's like an elder that stands up and speaks. They speak maybe 45 minutes to an hour, and there's a respect there that you don't cut them off, but that's not exactly what the chair has done with my experience anyway. So I really don't like that sort of thing where it goes on and on and on. And there's a lot of repeating there too. It can go on where they're talking about 10 years or 15 years. And so I'm a little disappointed myself with the way the meeting is run. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Melba. Is there any further questions or comments in relation to the communication plan itself as presented? Okay, I am not hearing or seeing any hands raised. Oh, sorry, see Nathan.
Yeah, thanks, Chief, and thanks, Joe, for the update. I do see the progress going on, and this is good work in terms of the communication. What's it called? Communication plan. And it'll be interesting to kind of continue to go through and see how the issues, and that's one thing I'm not seeing yet, is, well, I guess it's kind of in here, is the types of issues going to this table, and in terms of ensuring that they are governance. And I think they are, but it would be kind of highlighted to see how some of these, and it'll be interesting to see how this reflects in terms of the terms of reference, how issues are starting to get identified. And maybe that'll help with what Melba's kind of highlighting is the presentation piece. But I'm thinking, like, what are some of those high level issues or priorities now that the Iroquois caucus will set for itself going forward? Not looking for a response to that, but I'm just interested to see how that will be reflected in the next 6 months. So kudos to everyone that's been working on this. And if there's a motion required, I can certainly move it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks for that, Nathan. So there's a motion on the floor. It's moved by Nathan to accept the draft communications plan, so at least we can take our response back to the Iroquois caucus table and then start to look at the next steps from that point. Is there a seconder to the motion?
I'll second it, Melba.
Second by Melba. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Just also looking to waive second reading. Can I get a mover and seconder to waive second reading?
I'll move.
Moved by Nathan, seconder.
Second, Melba.
Second by Melba, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, the next item, again, in relation to the Iroquois caucus, is the a political rep at the harvesting working group. I know there's been a lot of discussion at this group, and so really looking to Jill again just to give us a quick background, and then looking to see if anyone is interested in being that political rep. Over to you, Jill.
Thank you, Chief. So the harvesting working group of the Iroquois caucus has been active for a number of years, and actually the issue of hunting and rights surrounding that has been an issue that has been at the Iroquois caucus since the Iroquois caucus began a number of years ago. So this is a long-standing issue for our people. The Iroquois Caucus Harvesting Working Group unfortunately had a few setbacks within the previous 2 years. One was due to COVID, obviously, so there was limited meetings. But the other recent setback the table has had is that the two long-standing members of the Harvesting Working Group are no longer active within the group due to changes in political leadership in their communities. So the table is looking to reestablish, and what the table is requesting, or what the request is of the table, is that there be a representative from each of the Iroquois Caucus communities to sit at the Harvesting Working Group. So recently that group has undertaken a number of protocols, draft protocols in terms of hunting. And one of the key focuses is when our people hunt in other territories of our people, so, or other nations as well. So there's a lot of challenges within this particular area, and that have been going on for a number of years. That's why it's a working group. This is a smaller focused group that can get a number of issues addressed, or attempting to address that. So the Iroquois Caucus is looking for political representation at this time to sit at that table again. So if there's any questions, I'll try my best, Chief.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks for that, Jill. Is there any further questions or comments?
It's Melba.
Sure, go ahead, Melba.
I'm wondering about portfolio meetings that we are having, and whether this can be taken back, because when we talk about best fit, where is it going to fit with who? Or is it with a couple of people? Like, I just don't understand how we're moving forward and not really discussing any of these appointments without going back to the portfolio meeting and have full discussion about it.
Yeah, so I thought of that as well in terms of, and I know I believe we have something scheduled this afternoon, but at the end of the day, I think the work has to still keep moving while we're still doing, our next steps here in community. So wondering maybe, Jill, if there's opportunity even to put like a 3-month or a 6-month, time frame on this for a political rep, so that when we are, fully prepared, as Melba is saying, to have those discussions in relation to some of the appointments on these external, we can then revisit it then. Is that an opportunity, or is that a way that you see forward, Jill?
Yeah, certainly we can do that. That would probably
Okay,
be the
perfect.
start if we move forward.
Yeah, and the only reason I say that is because I don't want to continue to hold up, the Iroquois Caucus in the Harvesting Working Group for, lack of representation for us. So wondering if maybe we can even do a 3-month, because I know we're doing so much work happening within portfolios and they, exploring that. So wondering, is there a counselor who is interested to at least sit at the Harvesting Working Group for the next 3 months, and then we'll revisit it at that time. I think even if we could get an interest for the
I
next
will.
3 months from a counselor,
I will.
that I could also do. I could sit as the alternate. Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, Michelle. So can I then look to a mover and seconder to name Michelle on a 3-month basis to the political rep at the Harvesting Working Group?
I'll move. Sherlyn.
Moved by Sherry Lynn, seconder.
I'll second, Nathan.
Second by Nathan. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. I don't think we have to really worry about the alternate right yet, Jill, on that piece. So I could just fill in the alternate position if need be, again, for the next 3 months.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Okay, thanks for that, Jill. I should probably get second reading waived on that as well, so that can start immediately. Is there a mover to waive second reading?
I'll move. Sherilyn.
Moved by Sherry Lynn, seconder,
I'll second, Nathan.
second by Nathan. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Thank you, Michelle, for doing that. I'm going to continue moving down the agenda. Excuse me. The next piece is in relation to the court-approved class action and the opt-in notice to eligible bands. So I look to see who will be further speaking on this item. Not sure if that's Alani.
Chief, that's actually an item that was prepared by the chief's office again. Jill prepared a briefing note back in March 8th of 2022, earlier this year. This item was brought forward. We received a notice in the mail, and it's regarding the class action that's been filed by the band out in BC with regards to loss of language and culture caused by Indian residential schools. And so there's an opt-in deadline of March 31st, which is tomorrow. So we have actually, when this came to council a few months ago, council had requested that the survivor secretariat weigh in, because that's exactly parts of this is actually what some of the work that they'll be also covering eventually, I assume. But one of the things that I was actually late for the meeting today because I was having a conversation. They're meeting tomorrow, and they requested that a rep from here attend to discuss this so that they can give their feedback directly to council. It'll then should their direction be that they wish the council to opt in, then there's still time to do that. So I would say, based on the recommendation that's there, you could approve it, but add that pending the recommendation of the survivor secretariat. Because then it still leaves room for if they say like they're not comfortable having council move in that direction, then there's no harm with passing the resolution. It's basically giving you the authorization to sign it should that be the direction that we receive.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Tam, for reminding me on that piece. I do recall, I do apologize, I was unable to make agenda review this past or last week. So that being said, I do agree. I think that might be the best step forward in relation to the trying to meet the deadline as well. So Tammy, do you know what time the meeting starts tomorrow at the Secretariat?
I will confirm, but if somebody from council isn't able to attend, either Jill or myself could also speak to the matter.
Okay, perfect. Maybe then if we can, we'll just leave it with the chief's office to attend at the Secretariat. But looking to see if there's any questions, comments from council in relation to this opt-in class action. I think that's an important step to keep the survivors involved in every process. So I do agree, Tammy. I think if we do add in, or if someone is prepared or willing to at least move on the motion and second it with the pending the discussion at tomorrow's Survivor Secretariat meeting in their further direction. I see Arliss has her hand raised.
Yeah, I could speak just in regards to the generic piece of those individuals in our community that have lost the culture and language by collateral damage, you might say. How do we ensure that that voice is also heard, right? Because I think this is where the platform is coming from, is those that are maybe didn't have direct descendants of residential schools or the child welfare system, but are still impacted by the loss of language and culture. So I just want to make that point that it also covers those individuals.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks, Arliss. Is there any further questions, comments? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised or voices. So I will look to see if anyone is prepared to move on the motion with the addition of pending the discussion at the Secretariat tomorrow.
Chief, I'll move on that.
Thanks, Nathan. It's moved by Nathan, seconder. Seconder to the motion. Okay, I'm gonna go third and final seconder to the motion to accept the opt-in with the pending the discussion at the Secretariat. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it. It's Melba.
Second by Melba. Thank you, Melba. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. I'll hold off on second reading for that one. And then we'll look to, again, the Chief's office to follow up on the meeting tomorrow and advise council on the decision at that point. So thank you, council. The next item is just in relation to political updates. As you're all well aware, we had a busy week last week with our community events, in addition to our visit from Minister Mark Miller, as well as our political local candidate night for the upcoming provincial election. So maybe just really quickly, if I could shift over to Christopher. Christopher, if you could maybe just give us just a high level synopsis of last week's events politically and some of the pieces that we are working on in our office currently in relation to the letters to the party leaders as well in the election, and some of the other pieces in relation to our follow-up with Minister Haidu. Yes, I'll pass over to you, Christopher.
That's great. Thank you, Chief. And yes, it was a very busy week last week and a good week, I think. Obviously, we started at the beginning of the week with bread and cheese, and then the very next day had Minister Miller visiting Six Nations, heading down to the apple tree planting at the Woodland Cultural Center with survivors, and the Chief was there as well. So that was a good way to kind of welcome him back to Six Nations. After that, there was an education day with students at Mohawk Park, and the minister went to that as well as representatives from the Chief's office. The next day, of course, we had a key business meeting with Minister Miller, and were able to address a wide range of important issues for the community, including excise tax matters, the cannabis framework agreement, ensuring the prioritization of Six Nations police charges by prosecutors outside the territory. We also addressed a number of other issues like the citizenship code and the delay in federal approval of that, the land claims case, the willingness of government to enter into discussions with Six Nations surrounding that, support for the need for support for Gowanio Language School, environmental protection matters, strengthening the justice system capacity of Six Nations, things like that. So a lot of issues were addressed. And then we got to actually visit Gowanio with Minister Miller and show him the good work that the school is doing, as well as raise his awareness of the challenges facing Gowanio. He got to meet with some students, with members of the community, with members of the administration of Gowanio, and it was, I think, all around an impactful visit. And he expressed his increased personal support for finding ways to get actual financial support for Gowanio from the federal government. He is committed to working on that on his end. Minister Miller also made a visit to the Six Nations paramedics for their community barbecue, and again met with more members of the community there before meeting with council at the council chambers. So all in all, that was a very good, well-rounded visit, and a lot of different issues were able to be raised by members of the community, by council, and certainly by Chief Hill and his office. And so that was a big part of the week last week. Also, we have obviously a provincial election coming up this week on Thursday. There have been some concerns about lack of focus on Indigenous issues throughout the campaign, with no major newsworthy announcements on exclusively Indigenous issues. Of course, there there are other issues that that are certainly important to the community that have been talked about. And to engage with the community, Six Nations hosted a candidates night last week, in which we invited all of the local candidates to appear to speak to the community, and you can still see that on the Six Nations Facebook page. Each candidate was engaged with. Only one candidate wasn't able to attend and sent a statement instead. So that was, generally speaking, a well-attended event and a good chance for Six Nations to engage with provincial representatives. There have also been conversations that the chief and his office have had with other folks on the provincial scene, including the chief having a number of discussions with the premier. And we're going to be putting out further material, including a letter to the major party leaders to raise awareness on all their parts about the priorities of Six Nations. So that's kind of a glimpse at everything that's going on. We've obviously had other meetings that we're following up on, and more meetings to come as we keep pushing forward all of these different issues.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Christopher, for providing us that quick verbal update. The political pieces, again, as mentioned, there's a number of items that we have to follow up on, so we'll continue to keep council informed. Is there any questions, comments in relation to the political update? Okay, I am not hearing or seeing anyone. So again, thank you, Christopher. We'll continue to push along as best as we can moving forward. And we will look to again keep full council in our community as updated and informed as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, that does. Thank you, Christopher. That does lead me to my next item on the adjournment on the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn this open session?
I'll move, Melba.
I'll second Sherry Lynn.
Moved by Melba, second by Sherry Lynn. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Thank you to everybody for joining us this morning on Political Liaison. Again, looking forward to our next live stream meeting. Take care and have a great start to your week.